Men's advantage at work. Welcome to Change the Conversation with the Hopefulist. My name is Wendy McClure, and it's time we had a conversation about living in a patriarchy and how that affects our lives. Together, we can make a difference and change the conversation. Hello, and thank you so much for joining me once again here on Change the Conversation with the Hopefulist. I appreciate you being here. One of my favorite things that I still hear quite often is, what rights don't women have? I mean, aside from the fact that they're losing their bodily autonomy, that's just the tip of the iceberg. But most women still making only 70% that men are making for the same job. There's all kinds of people saying that's been debunked, that women actually get paid more. I have not found any statistics or research that supports that theory. So what I wanted to do was go over some stats and research that I have found when it comes to women and how they are treated, how they are expected to act when it comes to work and the working conditions. Now, one of the main things that puts women at a disadvantage is assuming that they can come into work every day at the same time, very far away from locations, from schools, child care centers, doctors, grocery stores. Those schedules really just don't work for women. In an ideal world, women would have daycare centers where they work or right next to where they work. The daycare centers would start earlier and end later to accommodate a woman's work schedule. None of the working conditions are designed for this. None of us, including businesses, can go without the invisible, unpaid work that carers do. If women can't stop at the grocery store on the way home from work, they are not as likely to get a dinner on the table that they will be cooking themselves that they picked up at the grocery store. They're more likely will grab some takeout for somewhere that is along the way. If they made things more convenient for women to do both, and again, we're even just asking women to do both, work inside and outside the home. I won't even get into the fact that, men could pick up some slack and do some of these duties because, again, statistics show that the majority of them do not. Some do, the majority do not. So women are being penalized for just having to do this unpaid work in addition to the paid work that they are, in most cases now, required to do in order to have any decent standard of living. They are not trying to adjust the system. Now, some big companies are putting in some systems that would benefit women and their schedule and the fact that there are families. I mean, they want women to have children. They want women to get married and have children. And I know their sole goal is to get us to stop working, but everything has been so inflated price-wise, houses, cars, groceries, what have you, that it's not really possible for a woman to stay home and take care of her family anymore, even if she wanted to. So women are being required to work these jobs outside of the home. But if they tried to make it a little bit easier so that they could do both, that if it were more convenient for the woman to drop the kids off at daycare or pick the kids up from school or have a grocery store on the way home, this would make lives a lot easier for women. But most times, this is just being ignored. Studies show that women are held to different standards in the workplace as well, especially in like interviews. First of all, they automatically get less pay. In my experience, is that experience in all fields? No, of course not. But in my personal experience, men automatically got a higher pay. And if women ask for more money, they are seen as selfish. So when you're going to try and get a job, how much do you think the company, the hiring managers will hold it against you if they have this theory that you're selfish? Probably not a good one. Now, when men are offered a starting salary, they do that with the expectation that men will counter offer. So they start below what they're willing to pay the man. But when women are made an offer and they counteract, they counter the offer to them, like I mentioned, they are seen as selfish, that there is this preconceived notion that women should be grateful that they're being offered the position at all. And I have my own personal story where this situation happened. I was interviewing for a job in another city, and I was going to have to move completely. I mean, it's a big deal to move from one city to the other. I was going to move from Philadelphia to Baltimore for this job, significant ways away from where I lived, where my family lived, where I had all of my roots. And they offered me a salary, and I came back and I asked for $10,000 more. I asked for $10,000 more than they were offering, because what they were offering me was not going to be livable on my own, away from my family, completely by myself. Now, I do believe that a man would have been offered more money to begin. They might have been offered $5,000 more than I did and been able to counter up to what I was, in essence, asking for. Not a lot of money, by the way. And instead of coming back to me and saying, that's too much, we're not going to be able to afford that, will you consider this? Or even coming back and saying, I'm really sorry, this is truly all we have to offer you. They just didn't get back to me. They just went on to the next candidate. They didn't even give me a response to my counter offer. It's still to this day. I mean, this happened like 20 years ago, and still to this day, it is astonishing to me that they didn't even have the courtesy to respond back to me. They just literally went to the next person when I drove all the way down to Baltimore and all the way back home the same day. And, that aside, most people would have to do that. But doesn't that, kind of give me some sort of nice response, some sort of response, really? I mean, I drove, in essence, 6 hours, rode both ways, round trip, and you can't even give me the courtesy of a, no, thank you, we're going to move on to someone else. You just ignore me like I didn't even exist. And what this did to me as a woman working in the world is it taught me a lesson that I'm not allowed to ask for more money. I'm not allowed to ask for more money. So then when I got into a position where I was able to negotiate a salary once again, which didn't happen for many years later because I spent a very long time with one company, I was too afraid to ask for more money. I was told what the starting position salary was, and I went, okay. Because at that point, I didn't want to lose the job. And I'm ashamed that I did that. I'm disappointed in myself that I did that. But at the same time, I did not want to lose that opportunity. I wanted that job. And all of my experience told me, take what they're giving. So, yes, there are different expectations and different standards when it comes to men in an interview process and women. And when it comes to performance reviews, when it comes to work, women get negative personality criticism that men just don't. They're called bossy, abrasive, strident, aggressive, emotional, and irrational. Women are told to watch their tone and to step back. Now, out of these words, the only one that appeared in men's reviews was the word aggressive. And that was to say that they needed to be more of it. They needed to be more aggressive. So women are getting yelled at for being aggressive, and men are being told they're not aggressive enough. Tell me you don't see the double standard there. Women are leaving the workforce in droves because of, and what they have stated is, undermining behavior from managers, feeling stalled in their career. They are repeatedly passed over for promotions, and they have projects dismissed. You know, this can happen to you over and over again, and you will finally realize that they're never going to take you seriously, that they're never going to give you a promotion, especially when you see people who are not doing as much as you, who are not getting the same results that you are getting promotions and pay raises and more responsibility when you are handling more of it than they are to begin with. So there is a different treatment for women than there is for men in the workplace. I saw some statistics on ratings from students on female professors, and they are more likely to be called harsh, unfair, strict, and annoying. Now, one female professor got feedback from a student that said, and I quote, "I like how your nipples show through your bra. Thanks." So you know what she did? She made sure she started to wear a padded bra. So once again, what are we doing? Men are behaving badly, and women are changing in order to accommodate that. That's what that tells me. That some punk in a college course thinks that he has the right and is entitled to talk about his professor's breasts in a review. And the woman decided that she could no longer dress the way that she felt most comfortable dressing. And this continues to go on and on and on. Could you imagine, just imagine a female student putting in a review, an official review to a male professor? I'm very impressed with your package. I can only imagine what would be let loose underneath there. I mean, could you imagine? But these people suffer no consequences. They suffer no consequences for actions like these. It is abhorrent that these people get away with saying things like this to people they should be respecting. Even more so just the fact that they're another human being, but they're somebody who is giving them a grade. I don't know what kind of grade this person was expecting, but they obviously were not afraid that it was going to be lessened by their comment. And it should have been. There should be some sort of appropriate action taken for comments that are inappropriate. We need to get across to boys and to men that this is not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. And it really irks me that still to this day, women are changing themselves to guard against inappropriate comments. It's infuriating to me. It is just infuriating. Women adjust to their own harassment and mistreatment. What we need to do, I think, is we need to get reviewers into a room and ask them why women's performance is judged so differently than men's. Why do we continue to enable men to say inappropriate things to women? We need to call out these comments, like the nipple one, and have real consequences to ever see a stop to it. Now, the first step is to call it out when you feel safe to do so. And it's more than just the comments. It's the perception of women when they are doing something. There was a case of a female professor who was reviewed at the end of her course. And one of the reviews that she got from a male was she talked about feminism too much. Now, out of her 12 classes, she talked about feminism one time in one class. Why is this perception that she endlessly talked about feminism when it wasn't endlessly talked about? It's the same thing when, there's been studies, and I don't have the specific stats in front of me, but there have been studies where men have been asked, how do you feel about what the woman presenter said compared to the other presenters? And they're like, well, she took 2 hours to speak where the other guys took a half hour. And that turns out to be absolutely not true. That the woman took exactly the same amount of time that the others did, that the men did, but yet it was perceived as her going on and on and on because I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. My guess would be is they don't like listening to women. So it seems to drag on to them. Is that the actual case? I don't know. I don't know what other reason there would be for just thinking that women keep talking about things over and over again when they're in fact not. That it's just this perception that men have. And it's a wrong perception. It's just out and out wrong. If talking about feminism in a political class for one class out of 12 is too much, then that's a problem with the student because it exists, like it or not. The only reason feminism exists is because men failed to stop disrespecting women. If women were respected, we wouldn't even need feminism. If men treated women like human beings, we wouldn't need feminism. So, men definitely have an unfair advantage at the workplace. And unfortunately, that is where we are right now. So to keep things real and to keep things in perspective, I'm going to suggest you remember the 3 R's. And let me just say this first. The next time somebody says to you, what rights don't women have today? I hope that you can remember some of these stats and some of these examples that I have gone over with you, because that is a real detractor from women in the workplace, from even wanting to be at work, to striving to climb a corporate ladder or to get to a better position. And, once we talk about, managers and women in positions of power, that's when you get things like I was just mentioning about the female professors. They get called harsh, unfair, strict, annoying. Women are called that all the time, especially when they are in leadership positions. So what I want you to do is, when it comes to the 3 R's, I want you to review any situation at work and think how it may have been handled differently if you were a man, or if a situation would have happened at all if you were a man. And I want you to keep everything. I want you to keep everything, every email, every voicemail that could be questionable. I want you to keep any text message, anything that can prove or go to show how you've been treated compared to others in your company. I want you to record that's going along with the review. When you find things in your review, I want you to record them. If somebody in a meeting shuts you down one day, I want you to write that down. If you present an idea and nobody says anything, but then a couple minutes later or the next meeting later, somebody presents your idea in just a slightly different worded way and it's adopted immediately, I want you to write that down. When people are rude to you at work, I want you to write it down. And like I said, keep any and all evidence of the way that you are being treated. Now, the unfortunate thing in all of this is even if we have the evidence, then we're seen as combative. We're seen as not being a team player. We're seen as being selfish. So if you ever feel like you can actually reveal, which is the third R, the results of your review and your recording to those you feel you can without using it against you. If you can go to human resources and not be retaliated against, I encourage you to do that. But if you do feel you will be retaliated against, well, then the next step is up to you. You can continue with what you're doing and just continue to review, record, and, at some least reveal to your friends and your loved ones, vent to them about how you're being treated differently, you're held to different standards, and move on when you get an opportunity to do so. Because the sad, hard truth is, if you're being treated a certain way in a certain company, you likely will never move up. You likely will not get the promotions that you're seeking. You likely will not get the raises that you are hoping for. So all you can do, because none of this is required by law, and it's still so ingrained in all of us, how normal it is that a man can say to his professor, I love how your nipples show through your bra. And instead of him getting in trouble for that, the woman changes her appearance in order to accommodate that. That is the real, honest truth about how women are treated versus how men are treated in the workplace. And that's what you can tell people when they say, what rights don't women have? Yeah, this is my favorite. It just makes me my head want to explode when people say that. And usually when somebody says that, they're not listening to real answers anyway. But unfortunately, this is the state of being in the country today. All you can do is all you can to protect yourself and to move forward knowing the facts, knowing what is best for you, how likely you are to get where you want in that company. And if you don't think you will, then you can try and make arrangements to find other opportunities where maybe, hopefully, they'll be a little more progressive, things will be a little different, and things will be a little more equal. So speaking of equal, if you have not yet signed for the Equal Rights Amendment to be put into the Constitution this year, we need you. By the end of June 2024, we need as many signatures as possible, and that coincides with the women's strike that is taking place. We are being encouraged as women to go on strike, to not go to work, to not spend any money, to not do household cleaning, to meet up if you are in an area that is hosting a rally. If you aren't, then host your own rally. I'm going to a rally that day on June 24th to support the women's strikes, which also, of course, coincides with the 2-year anniversary of the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade. But if you have not signed on for the Equal Rights Amendment yet, go to sign4era.org and add your signature today. So, if you would like some more information about me, please check out my website, Hopefulist.com. There are all kinds of interesting things on there that you can check out. And please subscribe to my free email newsletter. I will be keeping you updated on everything that is taking place. All women, all the time. That's what I talk about. Getting women the rights that they deserve in order to live life on their terms, without restriction, without expectation, and without judgment. We have to start somewhere, and this is where I am starting and continuing each and every day and week and month of the year. I hope you will join me. So, it's the beginning of a new week. Go out there, be badass. I am here cheering you on as always. And always remember that we are stronger together. Thank you for joining me in this conversation. Together, we are better. Please visit my website at hopefulist.com and remember to hit that subscribe or follow button.